address is with TCP protocol also. TCP/IP, we call the protocol names basically. Then I expressed how IP address is located to devices. This is the last slide that we saw in the earlier lecture. And I also wanted you guys to visit these RIRs, regional internet registers, and to have a look at what they really involve in their activities in terms of improving internet globally. So now you have understood clearly who owns the IP addresses, how it is being allocated to the end users. Mostly the end users get IP address from ISPs, Internet Service Providers. So if in the context of Sri Lanka, we have a few ISPs, including Sri Lanka Telecom, Dialog, Mobitel, Lankabel, some other private internet service providers. All of them give IP addresses. All of them basically sell IP addresses to the users. User means any users, people like you and me. Then why do we need IP address? Because we have devices, like we may have a laptop, we may have servers at home or in our company, in our school, in our campus. So we need IP address. So we directly go to the ISPs and get the IP addresses for our devices. Right. So by now you have understood some basic things. Let's move on to types of IP address. Still we are looking at IP version 4, remember always. I said IP version 6 already in use, and we will discuss later on, because we need to understand IP version 4 very well. Then later we can talk about IP version 6. It's not a big deal. So if you look at the IP address types, they classify the IP addresses in different ways. This is one of the classification: IP address, static IP address, dynamic IP address. What we do with the static IP address, the name itself, you can think of it like manually input by network administrator and whoever it is, and manageable for small networks, requires careful checks to avoid duplication. Right. So you may not understand what I'm really talking. The first category is the static IP address. When you say static, it is permanent IP address. It is permanent IP address. Once you got the IP address for your device, you manually set up the IP address, and you yourself you can set your IP address if you know how to set the IP address. If not, if you are working as a user in any big organization or small organization, you are most probably there will be a network administrator who can do the job for you to configure this IP address. The problem, say, if you have if you are a network administrator, if you happen to be a network administrator in the company, there may be more than 500,000 PCs maybe. So you have a lot of responsibility. You have to visit a lot of places to go and open the PCs and configure the IP address manually. So it's very hassles some task to do that. also, if it is a small network, it wouldn't be a much different. But if it is a large network, the network administrator have a lot of issues to configure the static IP address. And also requires careful checks to avoid duplication. We know that two devices cannot have same IP addresses because there will be duplication. Same within the physical world, you can't have two address for two different people. Same address cannot have two different people. So your address is very unique. Okay. So sometimes duplication might occur when you work in a larger network. When duplication occurs, the data communication will not take place between the source and the destination. That is static IP address. By now, what you know, IP address static means permanent IP address set up manually. That is enough. I will take you the practical aspect while. Then hold on, please. So if you look at the second type is we call it the dynamic IP address. This kind of IP address solves the problem of static IP address. We know that if it is a larger network, difficult to configure individually, the static IP addresses, it would take time, but it is more secure than dynamic IP address. So the dynamic IP address, the name itself expresses some sort of understanding. Is how it happens is like what to do. So hold on, like so plenty of drawing involves the problem. Let me check where is our white. So, say for example, if it is static, say you may have computers here, have PCs, or else you may have laptops or something like mobile phone, even you can have mobile phone. All these need addresses. So in terms of static IP address, you must, for example, if you must go here, set up like 192.168 5.10. Then you set up, go here and set up 192.168 5.15. So this is how you set up static IP address. You just go and manually give the assigned IP address because you have IP address pool page and you set up the IP address here. But when you come to dynamic, what happens is these devices, the devices that this one device A, device B, device C, or something, any devices, device name or host name, any device, can get the IP address automatically. Automatically. How it gets automatically? The next question. Okay, it gets automatically. Then question is how? How you get? For example, so here say you have a PC. You have a laptop sometimes. So I'm sorry for my drawing. Excuse with me. I manage myself with lot of hard with my old laptop as well as the mouse. So bear with me the difficulties or inconveniences caused in this regard. But I try my level best to give you the best. Right? To be automatically how it gets me. The moment these devices boots up, that means the moment you powered on the PC or laptop will send a request, or else we call that these devices automatically send a broadcast message. Say to the nearby server, right? Servers or nearby or whatever it is, where DHCP enabled. What is that? We call it as dynamic host control protocol is enabled here. Dynamic host control protocol. This is enabled here. This will send the neighboring devices, say requesting for an IP address. You may ask me how is, because each and every device by default it has a capacity to broadcast the packet. Say hello, I am up. Can you release me an IP address? That's how the broadcast message will send to the nearby server. Hello, I am boot up. Can you release me an IP address? So the moment the servers or any nearby device listen to the request, it would automatically assign an IP address. Here is an IP address. It would say here is an IP address 192.168. You know the format of IP version 4, 168.4.10. So for the laptop, it say here is an IP address 192, because this one both in the same location 192.168.4.11. So you see, this is how we get the dynamic IP address. Nobody goes physically set the IP address, automatically it receives. So how it receives automatically. This DHCP server is enabled and DHCP protocol is enabled on the servers. The moment clients or hosts or devices request for an IP address, so it will automatically release an IP address to the devices. We call it dynamic IP address. Yeah, static. This is permanent. This is dynamic. That means the moment you switch off the PC or laptop, this IP address will be released back to the server. Get my point? That is what we call it dynamic. Even though you switch off the PC, this address will remain as permanent. That is static. But when you switch off this PC or laptop, then this address will be released back to the server. So the DHCP server offers, it is in lease time. time, there is a lease time. The server will offer a lease time to use the IP address by the clients. So, are you all so far so good or so bad? Have you all understood? These two addresses, have you all understood? Let me proceed further, or have you had any issues with static and
understood, sir.
so are you all with me? Can you all hear me? Can you all see me my whiteboard?
Yes, sir.
So have you understood what I was explaining right time this time? I'm explaining technical. So have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
That's why I explained. Everybody, are you all right regarding static and dynamic?
So a question that we can track a person through these IP addresses, no? So if it's dynamic, can we track?
No. If it is static, you can track, but dynamic you cannot track.
So these computer hackers and criminals, they use these dynamic addresses.
No, hackers they also would have an IP address, but for them, for example, here you have here you are. Here is the hacker. He will have a PC here. He will have an IP address. He will have an IP address. All right. He will have. He can either have a static permanent, whatever he can have whatever the permanent address. Okay. But he would try to attack here, launch an attack towards this PC, because this person should know the IP address of this PC. Understood?
Okay, so but in some
if it is a dynamic, for example, by the time he requests something, he knows the IP address of this. By the time, sometime next time, this will get another IP address. If this is a dynamic, then this person has a difficulty to look a particular person again to identify. Get my point? But for him, this is very easy. He knows very safe. He can launch any attack towards this PC because this IP address is permanent. Are you all right?
Yes, but in some scenarios that in this police and all try to track these IP address, no. At the time that criminal's IP address will be changing within second and second. How is that?
Yeah, the IP address can be traced. Okay, not by everyone. Cannot do it by everyone. Only the technical guys can look for the IP address. Okay. I don't know whose IP address you want to trace. Hacker's IP address or other's IP?
The hackers.
You want to find hacker's IP address.
Yeah, and it will be changing or
yes, he may change. He may use either IP. IP can be static or dynamic. He can use different because he's a hacker. He wants to change his face, right? Address all the time. He must have launched an attack from one IP address. Next time when he comes to the things, but anyway, there is a chance. whatever the IP address, static or dynamic address, all the address was obtained from a particular IP service provider. Yes or no?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Then
Network provider.
it is very easy. Now, for example, this guy, this hacker, should have obtained an IP address from any ISP. Right? So ISP will have the record of all the IP addresses he has given to his client. So ISP say if you locate the IP address like this IP address, then he will look for, okay, this IP address range is belong to ISP, that is SLD, suppose, for example. So from there will be record who has put the IP address for this. So no issue on that. Now what you need to understand by now, understand the static address, dynamic address. The behavior of the dynamic, the static address is permanent. Dynamic address is changeable. Automatically releases the IP address, it changes. So I will take you the live scenario example. So you know this how to, for example, different computers will have a different setup. You go to open network and say, here you can see, you see my laptop is connected to the internet using Wi-Fi. Okay. Say if you, I will show you, this is my connection. Then if you, for example, if you connect it with the help of cable, basically the cable connection is Ethernet. So I don't have any cable connection, it is connected, not connected. You right click there. Say, what we have set here, automatic DHCP. So DHCP automatically we say the moment it is connected, it will get the IP address. If you look at the entire thing, you see this Ethernet, only this one is connected, this is not connected, this is not connected, this is not connected. So right click here, go to properties. If you want to set up connected. If you look at this one, you see, here you can look for Internet Protocol TCP or IP version 4. Internet Protocol TCP IP version 6. So we are not talking about not 6, we are talking about IPv4. Click here. So open this one. Then it would ask you, see, obtain an IP address automatically. Obtain DNS server address automatically. That means I have found my PC. Obtain an IP address automatically because I don't know my IP address range. I am just a user. I want to connect it to my SU staff ID. So I set my PC. So if you have set up like this, this is, we call it dynamic IP address. So automatically it will release the IP. Can you see any IP address here? Can you see any? Can you all see any IP address here?
No, sir. No, sir.
Right. Okay. Then what do you mean that? It means I have not got any IP. Does my PC has an IP address or not? It means that does it? If you cannot see any IP address here, do you think that my laptop has no IP address?
No, sir. Definitely it has an IP address.
Yes, definitely it should have an IP address, right? Say, I will just cancel it and show it. For example, this is my keyboard here. Say, if as I have got the IP address only, you can see the send and receive. Communication takes place at both ends. Send and receive. Send bytes and receive bytes. Can you notice? you can see the IP address of my PC. n.194.196.245. So are you planning to launch any attack to my PC? If you know my IP address, do that. Since I am teaching you, I am giving you a maximum practical knowledge with this data communication subject. Okay, network. So don't launch any sort of attack to my PC. Having on my IP address, right? No problem. Just I'm saying this is the IP address I have got automatically. Right? I've got my IP address automatically. As you all correctly said, without any IP address, it's not possible to connect with other devices or other people. So as I had set up my network setting to obtain an IP address automatically, my PC has got the IP address like this 10.194.196.245. Alright, so that is there. Then if you want to assign manually, so I am using dynamic IP address. If you want to use it manually, just right click wherever the interface that you want to set up the network. For example, if you have a PC, if you have a cable connection or somewhere, or wireless connection, whatever it is, right click. If you go to properties, then you see here a lot of protocols are stacked. Ethernet properties. We know that we studied the network standards in the very first class. Basically, we call the Ethernet and token ring. Token ring from IBM. Ethernet standard is the common standard used by many people. So from there, that is what sometimes even we call the cat cable. Sometimes we call it as Ethernet cable. So we are worried about now Internet Protocol version 4. So if you select that one, I said already, even though IPv4, it is a protocol suite, a mix of the suite is your IP version 4. When you select this one, click properties. Then here, if you want to set up manually or step, then click here. Use the following IP. You see it changes. You can type over here directly 192.168.2.10. Just typing, then it will take automatically. You can give 192.168.2.1 or something like. Prefer you use 192.168. Something any IP. You will see the ranges later. Like that. If you click OK, then you have assigned the manual IP address because you know the IP address you have been given by network administrator, or else network administrator will come on himself and do the thing. Then OK, then if you click OK, then this will use the IP address. Okay, that is the manual configuration. That is we call static IP address. This will permanently stay there. I don't want to use this one because the range is not here. This is a wrong IP address there, so I don't want to use this. You get my point. So this is how you manually configure the IP address. So I have set automatically. If you want to set up, you can use the other option. That is the way. So have you all understood the difference between the dynamic IP address as well as static IP address, and also you know where to configure the IP? So are you all with me? Are you all lost?
Yes, understood.
How about others? I want feedback from other larger audience. It is very rare to hear from the boys.
Yes, understood, sir.
How about others? One more guy?
Understood, sir.
Alright. So, if you don't understand, it is not nice for me to even to proceed with that. So that's what I very often ask you the question whether you have understood or something. I want to make sure my students are learning what I'm teaching. It is not the time, how much time that we worries about the hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours of learning. Only thing is how much the volume, how much the quality of the lessons that we learn. Fine. Let's continue where we left. Okay, this is the two types of address: static address, dynamic address. So the DHCP protocol, boot. Now this is the popular protocol. So dynamic host control protocol, assigned by the server when host boots, as I said. It's always convenient, since you are a new user, when you go to a new departmental campus, when you switch on your laptop, you may look for some time, where is the network, you have to call him and someone, he should come and configure the idea. It would take time, So it's very easy. If DHCP enabled the network environment, the moment you switch on the laptop, automatically the laptop will receive the IP address. So you can use the IP address as long as you are there with the lease time. So it derived automatically from a range of addresses, duration, then this we call the lease, negotiated, then address released back to the server. It should be released. The moment you are away from the network, it doesn't mean that you need to keep waiting. So that address could be assigned to somebody else. That is, yeah. So in that one category, I have explained you just to understand technically what static and dynamic. There are several IP addresses that are automatically assigned when you set up a home network or whatever the network. We call default addresses allow your computer and other network devices to communicate and broadcast information over your network. So these are some default automatically assigned IP addresses by default. That again, you may ask me why those addresses, because this even if you want to get the dynamic IP address for your laptop or a PC, your PC should broadcast a packet. Your PC should broadcast the packet to make a request to the neighboring device. So for that, you should have an IP address. So the numbers that you see on the screen, like 192.168.1.0. So when you say where is the pen? The zero is automatically assigned for network address. Automatically assigned for network address. I explained, I don't know, I explained most probably. This one, this basic network one, maybe.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, screen share has stopped.
You say if you look at the network, I also hope that you are taking the short note with me as I do on my screen, right? So remember that I will not be able to give the handouts like all this. You have to take the note with yourself, as I always say, right? So we know that this is if you look at an IP address 192.1.0, the first object, this number. Sometimes we use this number, we call it, this is an IP address could be divided by network portion as well as host portion. Host. So here, if you take network 1, how many hosts are here? How many hosts are here? It is altogether 4 hosts. 1, 2, 4. What is the meaning of the word host? I already said any device which is on the network. We call it as device host or node. You can remember the word I explained already. Host or node. N-O-I-D-E. Any device which is on any network, we call it as a host. So we assign certain IP addresses for hosts, certain IP addresses for network. This is this will have a network ID. Network will have a network ID. It means network IP address or network ID. ID means network identity. So then probably the IP address. This is the same way. Each host will have a host IP. You have host IP. So even the same will be here. Network 2 will have a different network ID. The host will have another. So in a typical network, you will have a host ID as well as network ID. So if you look at this IP address, the 0 is automatically assigned network address. So mostly this one 0 refers to the network ID. The number one, this one is commonly used address as the gateway. So we assign this number 1 number for gateway. So this one, you remember, you can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Say, if you take this one, the network ID 192.168.1.0. But if you look at the next ID, for example, 192.168.1.1, this one is the gateway. We call it, for example, it's a gateway. Gateway means it's like this, a door. So for your room, for each and every room will have one door. The first exit point would be the gateway. If you look at this PC should go through this switch. Yes or no? The PC1 should send the data through this PC, through this switch or not? Yes or no? PC1, PC2, PC3, all these PCs should send the data through this switch. Yes or no? Can't hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. If it is yes, the first exit point is the gateway. Even to the gateway, we should assign an IP. The gateway here, the switch is the first gateway. So we should assign a switch, an IP address 192.168.1.1. That is this 1 normally assign 1 for the gateway. That is what it says. 1 and 2 we assign for 1 and 2. 1 and 2 assign commonly address used for the gateway. Then address beyond 3, 32254. 32254. 32254. We know that maximum IP address you can go with 254. So 32254 can be assigned for host devices. Say this one, most probably, we will see the demonstration later. I'm just manually showing to 168, 1 dot, maybe 3. This one may be dot 4. This may be dot 5. So 32254 up to 254 is type C. We'll see later. So up to you can go with 254. So this automatically we assign this number, default number, to identify the host ID addresses and the network ID address. That is what it says. Nothing. So one addresses beyond 3 are assigned to computers and devices on the network. 255 is automatically assigned on the network as the broadcaster. 1.25, right? Now 255 will always be automatically assigned for the purpose of broadcast. You know that we learned that if any PC wants to get the dynamic IP address, if any PC wants to get the dynamic IP address, yes, dynamic IP address, this PC should broadcast the packet to the nearby server. So when you want to broadcast, it should have a automatic IP address. So 255 1.2, whatever the IP address ending with the 255 is for the purpose of broadcast. Anyway, one IP address is to be there for purpose of broadcast. So that is there. Next is this. This is what I have already said, how you want to allocate the IP addresses for the network IDs as well as host IDs. If you look at the diagram that on the screen now, how many networks are there? Can you answer my question? How many networks are there? Any answer? How many networks are there?
3 networks.
3 networks. 1, 2, 3. It is already numbered. Easily you can identify because there is a router in the middle. It connects to 2 different networks. 1, 2, 3. So the router is there. So you have 3 networks, individual networks. Can you identify the network IDs? For example, what is the network ID of 2? Can you identify the network ID of 2?
172.
172.16.0.0. Very good. So that is the network ID. What is the network ID of 1?
10.0.
10.0.0.0. Alright. So you have 3 networks. Now you see the diagram now. How the host IDs are given. Assigning host IDs. As I said already, as I explained already, you see to refer the network ID, we use zeros. The first network ID always zero subnet. Sometimes we call it 0 subnet. So the range starts then, for example, if you take the network ID 1, if you take the network 1, the ID ID start with 10.0.0.0. So the first host, the gateway will be 1. You can remember we said traditionally, automatically or by default, we assign number 1 for the gateway. You get my point, right? Because the gateway for these devices will be this one. The gateway will be this way. First exit point. All data should go here, go here, go here, go here. But so the gateway for this PCs from network 1 will be the IP address for this interface 1. Then next IDs assign purpose, like 10.0.0.10, 11, 12. If you look at the network 2, the IP range is 172.162, sorry, 16.0.0. So 0 as always network ID. Host IDs are here. Host IDs are given here. But still the gateway for the network 2 will be 1. That is what we call it 1. For the 3 it is 1. So rest of the number 4 host. So I think the diagram is really clear. Now you understood the difference between the host ID as well as the network ID. Still the IP addresses, all the when I say IDs, all refers to the IP addresses, right? So IP address, this is an expanded example list given. You can see the network ID and the host IDs. As I explained already, some more explanation is given in this. So you have a 0 network, 0 subnet. Right. Now let's come to another section. We call that IPv4 classes. It's not basically types. What we saw there, static code, this is all about classes. By default, the network engineers of IP version 4 have designed 4 classes of IP address 4, IP version 4. So the classes are A, B, C, D, E. Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E. And also they have set up the ranges. For example, if any IP addresses start from 0 to 127, 0 to 127, this range, of IP addresses belong to class A. See, sometimes you can remember I explained some IP addresses starting from 192. This one belongs to class C. The range is from 192 to 223. So this is how you have to memorize this. All these class A 0 to 127, class B 128, 191. Like that you have to remember. So in that, if you look at the network and host representation by IP address class, so we know that each IP address will have 4 octets. Octet 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want to say, for example, 192, 168, 1.10. To take this one. This is an IP. What is the class of this IP?
Class C.
Class
C.
This one class C IP address. Then you can, if you look at the class C, these 3 portions refers to the network. This is only the host. So an IP address, the entire IP address is represented by 4 octets. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 octets. 8 bits. We know that IP version 4 is 4 into 8 is equal to 32 bits. So 4 octets, 8 bits. So we call it, so these 3 octets, network, this number, all this one host. But if you look at class A, first 2 octets, 1 and 2, first octet refers to class A. The rest of them is class, rest of the portion, rest of the octets belong to host. If you take class B address, first octet is for network, second also network, rest of them host. So if you take class C, so if you take class C address only have more network IDs compared to other classes. But the class A has more hosts. Okay, so with the help of class A, you can create more hosts. With the help of class C, you can create more networks but less hosts. You got my point so far? You understood? Anybody is not clear with what I have explained so far? You may ask me, then I can give you more ideas. Enough. Shall I move?
Okay, sir.
So now, if you look at further details of breakup of these classes, if you take class A, we know that class A start with 0 to 127. Then you know the IP addresses range start 1.0.0.1 to 126.255.255.254. We know that 255 will be for broadcaster. You may ask the question, where is 255? You know that 255 will be automatically by default reserved for broadcast purposes, so we don't consider 255 here. So if it goes like this, class A there will be 16 million hosts. I said already, there will be more hosts in class A. If you assign class A IP addresses for your network, it is possible for you to assign more hosts than the network, because in class A there is only one octet for the network IP. Rest of them for hosts. So if you go like this, there are chances for 16 million hosts on the class A networks, but only 127 networks. But if you look at class B, the range is 1 to 8. We know that class A 0 to 127, class B start 1 to 8, up to 1 to 9, 191. So then it supports 65,000 hosts. Again, the number of hosts reducing. As we go by A, B, C like, the number of hosts will reduce, but the number of networks will increase. You see, in class A, we had 127 networks, but here you have 16,000 networks. But this one has reduced. Host has reduced. Here you had a 16 million, you have here 55,000. So if you take the class B, the range starts with 190 and it ends with 223, because class B starts with 224. So if class C goes like that, basically only 254 hosts can be created and can be assigned an IP address for class C, but much. These were given for big companies they use for multicast like video conferences or something like not widely used by end users. Class E also the ranges goes like that, but even that is reserved for future use of research and development purpose. And also you know that internet researches are going on globally continuously for the sake of improving the internet global network. So they want to set up a lot of laboratories to test the internet speed and other aspects. So they need IP addresses. Then they have reserved the IP address class E for research purpose. So we are mostly concerned with A, B, C. Okay. So far so good. So far so good. So bad. Good or bad?
Good, sir.
Okay. So if you look at class E address in detail, now you can read these slides, but is there on the slide? We know that as usual, each IP address class or EP address will have four octets. The first octet, dark yellow, if it is a class A, the first octet will be for the first octet always refers to the class A is a network, rest of them host. You know, 0 and 1 to 7 have special meaning and are not used. Can you remember? We said already 0 is a sign for networks. 1 to 7 is for use the loop address. So that is not used. So 1 to 6 different networks and 16 million hosts per network sometimes. Only the large organizations such as the military, government agencies, universities, and large corporations have class A address. Sometimes ISPs have 24.0.0.0 like class A address account for how many billion? 2 billions altogether? 692, around 2.1 billion possible IPv4 addresses in class A. That means 50% of the total unicast address. Okay. So A represents 50% of the total unicast address. Unicast means basically the one-to-one, right? We already studied unicast, multicast, already studied. That is class A address. Among them, the IP address 000 is used for the default network to represent the default network 000 so it is for that. And these numbers are by default. When network engineers design the IP version 4, they have reserved this number for this purpose. You don't want to worry about anything. Only you just know this number is for default network. The 127.0.0.1 is used for the loop back network. This means it is used by the host computer to send messages back to itself. It is commonly used for the troubleshooting and networking testing. Okay, that is what we call it loop back. The detail, please read that from this for a while. Read that. even the loopback address allows IT professionals to test IP software without worrying about broken or corrupted drivers and hardware. And 255, as I said already, messages that are intended for all computers on the network are sent as broadcast. This message is always used IP address 255, 255, 255. So it is usual for PCs or devices. They want to talk to each other. So then they use 255 as the default broadcast address, just to broadcast. Yeah. So if you look at class E, if you look at the detail, and also you can either default mask of class A 255.0.0.0. That is the default mask. Okay, that is also you must remember that, because the first 255 is the network portion of the class A address. That has the value of 255. The rest of them for host. So you get the value 0, 0, 0. So in terms of class A, the default mask, it is a concept inbuilt with IP address, so that you can identify the classes. Default mask is used to identify the different classes. If you identify default mask with like 255.0.0.0, you can understand this address belongs to class A, or else /A. What else we call it? /A notation. Sometimes when they write the default mask or subnet mask, it is usual to write with the / notation. Here the /8. So the /8 refers to the default mask or subnet mask. Here the default mask is 8, because only 255 the network, and the rest of them 0. If you look at class B, the first two, the dark green, dark yellow octet, the first two octets represents the network ID, network. The next two octets refers to host, that is class B. If you look at the default mask of class B address is 255.255.00. Why you have 225? Because you have two networks for class B. You have two default mask is also 255.255.00, or else. But if you don't write in the format of octets, you can write /16. For it /16. So if you look at the class B address, basically you may have 16,384 networks. 16,384 networks. You know the difference. I don't want to say again what is network, what is host. Network is a big it's umbrella term. Within the network only the hosts are coming. Okay? You can create 16,384 class B networks. You may create 60. When I say create or creator, you can assign. You can IP address assign. If you are assigning class B addresses, you can assign 65,534 host address. One for network address, one for broadcast address. It will go. So you can go up to 65,000. But as a whole, if we look at the class B, represents 25% of the total IPv4 unicast address. Class B, 25%. default mask, you can see 255.255.255.0. That is default mask. So there are around 2 million possible class C networks. Around 2 million possible class networks. But number of hosts is very less, 254 hosts. One for network address, one for broadcast. So out of the all unicast address, C class D represent only 12.5% of the total IPv4 unicast address. So that's the class C address. How much maximum possible network class C, as well as the number of hosts, the possible hosts that you can go with in assigning class C, and also the default mask of class C. We said the class D address is for multicast purposes. When you say multicast, it's a mechanism for defining groups, nodes, and sending IP messages to group rather than every node. The LAN, just one other node becomes unicast, opposite is unicast. Multicast is basically mainly used for research networks. Multicasting do not need to send the IP packets to each host. So class D is to serve for research purposes, and E also used for experimental purposes. Only available to public, not available public. Like class D is different from the first three classes. There's the first to tell one. It goes like this. Is basically what you need to know. This class D and E is not widely used. Basically because of it has a less number of IP addresses, so it is used for research and experimental purposes. E is mostly used for multicast. Multicast is for group communication with a group of people together, mostly the video conference. So this is the basic summary you can see with the IP blocks and classes. One shot you can see class A, class B, class C, portion goes to network, which of the goes to network portion and the first portion. It goes like that, possible network. So the no medium-sized host networks, basically the early days of the internet, IP address were allocated to organization based on the request rather than actual need. So if, as I said, IPv4 is in crisis now. We said already, we know that class A is 50% of the IP address. Class B to 5, it goes like this. Then when class A and B address virtually exhausted, means no more address finish everything. Assign class C address 12.5% of the total space are left to assign new networks sometimes. But anyway, IPv4 has already depleted or replenished. So IP version 6 has already in place. But still, most of the network traffic is carried by IPv4. But gradually countries, let's say, moving towards IP version 6. It's a gradual transition. You cannot immediately do. Most of the organizations are running with dual stack, IP version 4 and IP version 6. After once everything is established, so IP version 4 will be given up. IP version 6 stop now by this. We can continue from